This was the first day Marina had decided to truly live her life. Enough is enough. I'm a woman, I'm only 35, and I have a right to be happy, she thought, opening a travel agency website on her laptop. For the first time in 3 years, she decided to treat herself and her son to a week away in a warm climate. The colorful tour packages flashed before her eyes. She couldn't choose. She wanted everything at once. Scrolling past endless, all-inclusive deals in Spain and Greece, Marina settled on a domestic holiday spot she knew well, Cornwall. She'd often gone there in her student days with friends, and later with her family, her son, Daniel, and her husband, Benjamin. Benjamin had swept Marina off her feet when she was just 25. He was handsome, wealthy, and charming, with a distinctive mole on his chin. She immediately lost control and knew she wanted to spend her life with him. At first, everything was like a cheap romance novel. Exotic holidays, flowers, endless happiness, and a baby. But a year after Daniel's birth, things in Muir slowly began to change. Benjamin started coming home late from work, often staying until midnight. His business trips turned into monthly disappearances, usually to some southern country. Marina tried to fight off the thought of another woman, but Benjamin kept giving her new reasons to doubt him. Arguments led nowhere. He adamantly denied everything. Despite his behavior, Marina still loved him. She begged him to be home more often, at least for Daniel's sake, but he didn't pay much attention to his son. He would just give Marina some cash and vanish. Then one evening, he vanished for good. Almost every day, Marina mentally replayed that fateful evening, reliving every minute. At first, she cried constantly, but eventually, the tears stopped flowing. She had to hold back her despair for Daniel, who still thought his dad was on a long business trip. Yesterday, Marina had made a firm decision that she would reenact that scene in her mind for the last time. It was a cold February evening, and Marina had been walking around the flat with her phone in her hand for 3 days straight. Benjamin had gone on a business trip to Scotland and should have returned 3 days ago. His phone was off, and he wasn't replying to her messages. "Mummy, why are you so sad?" her 5-year-old son Daniel asked. "I'm not sad. Why are you still awake?" The boy sighed, turned, and padded off to his room. Daniel had no idea something had happened to his father. Benjamin had rarely spent time with him anyway, and in the last 6 months he hadn't even entered his room. So his father's absence hadn't changed anything in the boy's usual childhood routine. Marina called the firm where her husband was a managing partner. Benjamin had said they were opening a new branch in Scotland, which was why he had to fly there. She managed to get through to the CEO of the firm. "Hello, Julian Allister," she said, her voice shaking. She had met the director at several corporate events and knew him. "I'm calling about my husband's trip. Do you know how it's going? I can't get through to Benjamin." "What trip?" the director asked, surprised. "Marina, what are you talking about?" Marina's hand almost dropped the phone. "Aren't you opening a new factory in Aberdeen?" "No, we have no factories in Aberdeen, nor do we plan to, and Benjamin told me he was taking 2 weeks of unpaid leave." "I'm really not sure what you're talking about, Marina." "Unpaid leave. Thank you," Marina whispered and hung up. She slowly sank onto the sofa, covering her face with her hands. Benjamin's lies had crossed a line this time. Before, he had at least tried to come up with excuses, but now he had simply decided not to come home, turning his phone off. She couldn't tolerate this any longer. Of course, she should have left him much earlier, at the first hint of an affair. But she had stayed for Daniel. Benjamin could provide a comfortable life for their son, with a good education and holidays. If she left Benjamin, Marina would have to raise a child while working at the same time. She wasn't sure how long she could handle that, or what it would mean for Daniel. But this wasn't the only reason she had stayed. She still loved him, despite his awful behavior. But now, she had to break free. Enough of the humiliation. Many women leave their husbands and successfully raise even multiple children. She could definitely manage with just Daniel. These thoughts were interrupted by a phone call. It was Julian Allister again. "Marina, it's me again. Look, I just got a call. Benjamin is in Scotland, but not at a factory," the director said quickly and hesitantly. "I don't think this is a conversation for the phone. Maybe I should come over." Marina agreed. She quickly tidied up and waited for him. The firm's office was only a 10-minute drive away, so he was at her door very soon. The director greeted her and came inside. They sat on the sofa, and for about 15 seconds, they were silent. The director couldn't find the words, unsure of how to begin. "Marina," he started, sighing heavily. "Benjamin? Ben? He went to Loch Ness to ride a snowmobile on the ice. He often goes there with his friends." Marina couldn't stop being surprised by these new revelations about her husband's life. "Yes, but that's not the point. Just after your call, my colleague came into my office and gave me some information from Scotland. There's been a bit of a thaw, and snowmobiling is banned in those conditions, but..." "But what? Just tell me." Marina couldn't stand it. But Ben decided to go onto the ice anyway and fell through. "How could that happen?" Marina's face went pale. "Marina, are you all right? Should I call an ambulance?" Julian Alistair asked, worried. "No, no need. The thing is, it didn't happen on the loch itself, but on a river nearby. There was a strong current, so they haven't found Benjamin's body yet. The rescue teams say there's no chance of finding him alive." Marina felt as if she had been hit over the head with a hammer. Only 15 minutes ago, she had been cursing Benjamin and had firmly decided to leave him. And now she was hearing that he was dead. She stared blankly into space, as if watching a silent film of their life together. Julian Alistair went to the kitchen and brought her a glass of water. "I promise you," the director said, trying to calm Marina, "the firm will help you with the will and all the legal matters." "But how is that possible if they haven't found Benjamin's body? What if he's still alive?" she asked. "It happens. A person can be declared deceased without their body being found. I understand you don't want to accept this loss, but I was assured that there was no chance of Benjamin being saved." "I'm so sorry." Marina no longer heard what Julian Alistair was saying. Tears streamed down her face. She didn't know how she was supposed to go on. After composing herself a little, she showed the director out and sat in the kitchen. "Mummy, why are you crying?" Marina hadn't noticed Daniel coming into the kitchen. "What? I'm not crying. My eyes are just watery. Why are you still not asleep? I heard you talking to a man. Was that a man from Daddy's work? Where's Daddy?" Marina fell silent. She didn't know what to say. She didn't want to tell her 5-year-old son that his father had died. She also didn't want to tell him that he had gone to heaven. So Marina decided to stall for time until Daniel asked about his dad again. "Daddy's on another trip as usual, only this time he'll be a bit longer." "What's he doing there?" Daniel was at that age where children ask endless questions, and it was especially difficult for Marina to answer them. He's opening up new worlds and exploring mountains, lakes, and seas. He's working and traveling. I want to open up new worlds too. When you grow up, you can open up whatever you want. But right now, you need to go to sleep. You know that you grow the most when you're sleeping. So the earlier you go to bed, the faster you'll grow. "Okay, off you go." The boy went to the door, but suddenly stopped, turned around, and asked a question he had never asked before during all of Benjamin's trips. "When will Daddy be back?" "I don't know," Marina said, barely holding back her sobs. "Not for a very long time. It's a difficult and long trip. You can't open a new world in just a week. Can you?" Daniel nodded and went into his room. For the first time in several years, Marina was almost glad that her husband had barely paid any attention to their son. She couldn't imagine how she would have explained what had happened to Daniel if Benjamin had been a loving and attentive father. Now, there was a chance the boy would eventually forget his dad and not even ask about him. Of course, years from now, when Daniel was a teenager, she would have to tell him the whole truth. But that was for later. For now, Marina's main goal was to protect the boy's mind as much as possible and not burden him with upsetting news. But what about her? Benjamin's betrayals and double life did not lessen the pain of his death. Marina had always known she loved her husband, but now she felt it more acutely. She was in a psychological trap. When she had decided to leave him, she could have suppressed her feelings with anger and resentment. But she couldn't do that now. She couldn't be angry at someone who had passed away. His infidelity seemed to be erased from her memory. She only remembered the good times. Most of their happy moments had been at the start of their relationship, and memories from that time now flooded back. She went into the living room and took a family photo album from the shelf. Flipping through a few pages, she saw a photo of her and Benjamin on a snowmobile somewhere in the Scottish Highlands. Back then, he had taken her with him on all of his trips, including the snowmobiling ones. He was a professional. He could ride a snowmobile with his eyes closed, Marina thought, wiping away a tear. How could he have let such a terrible thing happen? It's not like him at all. No, it's not like him. I have to wait for them to find the body. I can't believe this. She slammed the album shut. She managed to calm herself down for a few minutes, but then she felt an immense bitterness again. She was only able to hold back the hysteria by thinking of her son's well-being. She wanted to run, call, scream, and demand that the search for her husband continue. She thought about calling Julian Alistair again, but stopped herself. What good would that do? Marina wouldn't be able to influence the search. It would be pointless to try to convince someone that her husband couldn't have died in such a stupid way because he was good at riding a snowmobile. She pulled herself together again and sat on the sofa. Marina sat there, unable to think of anything. She just wanted to fall asleep and wake up as usual, watching her husband hurry to work, quietly say goodbye, and then disappear for a few days. Marina took some drops of valerian and lay down. She tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She kept repeating to herself, "Hope and wait, hope and wait." She didn't want to let her husband go. Well, she was ready to let him go from their family, but she couldn't let him go from her life entirely. The valerian started to work, and Marina finally fell asleep. Every day, hope and wait sounded less and less in her mind. Benjamin was officially declared dead, even though his body was never found. Julian Alistair kept his promise, helping her with the will, providing financial support, and even getting her a remote job at the firm. Marina was able to balance raising her child and earning a living, but she still couldn't let go of her husband. For 3 years, she was in a state of mourning, denying herself any rest or enjoyment, only smiling when she was with her son. He remained the only purpose in her life. And so 3 years passed. A smiling girl on the travel website held a sign that said, "Happy holidays for the whole family," with 2 plane tickets in her other hand. Marina sighed and clicked the buy button. "Daniel, we're going on holiday to Cornwall next week," Marina said loudly after buying the tickets. For the next week, she prepared for the trip with her son. The preparation was not about packing as much as it was about her mentally accepting her new life, her new identity, not as a heartbroken widow whose husband had lied to her for years and then died in a tragic accident, but as a woman living a full life. Time flew by, and Marina didn't even notice the week pass. It was time to head to the airport. Upon arrival, she sat in the waiting area. The last time Marina had been at an airport was 5 years ago with Benjamin, when they had sent Daniel to his grandparents' house and gone on a week-long trip to Portugal. The memories flooded back, but she managed to push them away. Marina took Daniel's hand and headed towards the departure gate in the endless stream of people. The crowd at the gate was a bit smaller, so she and her son sat down right by the gate. Marina looked at the other passengers waiting for their flight to Cornwall. Most of them seemed happy, likely heading for a holiday. A group of teenagers laughed at a video they were watching online. 2 elderly women read newspapers, which were usually found on stands in airports. A few rows away, a couple was sitting. The girl was a 25-year-old bleached blonde, and the man was wearing a large hat and glasses. It was hard to guess the man's age because he was turned towards his companion and had his head bowed, so his face was completely covered by his hat. The man was animatedly talking to the girl, but she didn't seem interested. She was engrossed in her phone and wasn't reacting to anything he was saying. Marina didn't continue watching the interesting relationship between the man in the hat and his companion and turned her attention to her own phone. 15 minutes later, the flight was called. Marina and Daniel went to their seats. The boy sat by the window, and his mother sat next to him. "Daniel, this is your first real flight, isn't it?" she said happily. The last time they had flown together, he wasn't even 2 years old. "This is so cool, Mummy. This is great that we're flying together." "You probably don't remember the last time you flew, do you?" Marina asked, and realized with horror that she shouldn't have asked that question. The boy looked out the window, deep in thought. "No, I don't remember anything at all." Marina breathed a sigh of relief. She was afraid that Daniel might have memories of his father from that flight. Over the last 3 years, the boy had barely mentioned his dad, only at the beginning asking about his trips to explore new worlds. Marina had made up stories on the spot about his dad's team being stuck because of bad weather, meeting some strange people, and other fairy tale nonsense. As Daniel grew older, he asked fewer and fewer questions about his father. For the past 1.5 years, he hadn't asked a single time, But Marina was still worried that his classmates might talk about their dads, which could lead to Daniel asking new questions about his father. Thankfully, this hadn't happened. Maybe it was because she knew the mothers of Daniel's friends, and these mums, knowing Marina's situation, had asked their children not to bring up the topic of fathers around Daniel. Or maybe she was just lucky. But she knew that in the next few years, she would have to have a serious conversation with her son. Marina had even asked a psychologist for advice on the best way to do it. She had been advised on various psychological tricks, but she hadn't found the right one yet. "Mummy, look, we're above the clouds," the boy said, marveling at the flight. Marina looked at her son and remembered their flight with Benjamin and Daniel. The boy had sat on Benjamin's lap then, calmly looking out the window. Other children had been screaming throughout the cabin, but Daniel had been quiet in his father's arms. Marina had looked at them and couldn't get enough of this family picture. She never would have thought that a family flight with her son would be their last. A year and a half later, she and Benjamin had flown again, but without Daniel. At that time, Marina and Benjamin's relationship was already showing the first signs of misunderstanding and suspicion, and the purpose of that trip was to get closer. But they hadn't gotten closer. On the contrary, after the holiday, their relationship went downhill. Marina called a flight attendant and asked for some water. She didn't want to go back to the memories of her husband, but her memory was playing a cruel trick on her. Marina became anxious again. She was even mad at herself for breaking her own promise to start a new life. But she had to try again. Marina drank the water, closed her eyes, and tried to fall asleep. Mummy, I need to use the loo." Daniel woke his mum up. "Come on, I'll take you." "Mummy, I'm old enough to find the toilet on a plane. I'm 8, and the flight attendant showed me where it was before the flight. I'll just ask her." "You're so clever," Marina said, and let her son go down the aisle. She watched Daniel as he walked confidently to the front of the plane, where a flight attendant met him and showed him the toilet. Seeing that her son had reached his destination, Marina started looking out the window. The plane had long since reached the right altitude and was flying smoothly. But a minute later, the captain's voice came over the loudspeaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We are approaching a turbulence zone and there may be a little shaking. Please remain calm. This is a normal situation. It will be over in a minute." The pilot hadn't even finished his usual announcement when the plane started to shake. "Daniel, my boy," Marina thought. "He must be so scared." She got up and wanted to go to the loo, but she heard a woman's voice from behind her. "Ma'am, please return to your seat. We are in a turbulence zone and safety rules require." The flight attendant was about to make Marina sit down, but she cut her off. "My son is over there. I need to get to him." "Don't worry, he'll be fine." At that moment, Daniel came out of the toilet. He walked calmly to his row, but then suddenly stopped. After a moment, he continued, but much faster. When Daniel got close, Marina saw his pale, frightened face. "Mummy," he said in a shaky voice. "Daniel, what's wrong? Are you scared? This is called turbulence. There's nothing to be afraid of." Marina thought his fear was caused by the sudden shaking. "Mummy," Daniel repeated, almost in a whisper, "Daddy is sitting over there with a woman." Marina quickly helped her son into his seat. "Darling, what are you talking about? You must have imagined it." "No, I saw him. His hair is different, but it was him. You should go and see. You must be tired from the long flight. Let's put your seat back so you can get some sleep." "You don't believe me?" "Why wouldn't I believe you? It's just, there are so many people on Earth and some of them look very similar. So you probably just saw a man who looks a lot like Daddy." "I know it was him," the boy said, crossing his arms and staring out the window. Marina realized it was pointless to try and convince him otherwise. Besides, she was finding it hard to stay calm and pretend that everything was fine. She was much more anxious inside than Daniel was. She tried to convince herself that there was no way Benjamin could be sitting there. Daniel had probably just remembered that flight from his childhood and imagined he saw his dad. It would be easy enough to check. She could just get up, walk to the toilet, and walk back. But Marina didn't dare. What if there really was a man who looked a lot like Benjamin? That could completely throw her off. For the rest of the flight, Marina didn't get up. She was even afraid to turn her head towards the aisle. An hour and a half later, the plane began its descent, and 20 minutes later, it landed safely. Passengers jumped out of their seats and started getting their bags from the overhead compartments before the plane had even stopped at the gate. Marina wasn't one of those people. She didn't want to stand in the aisle with her son for another 5 minutes. She decided to wait in her seat until the door opened and most of the people had left. Marina was calmly watching the people standing up. Just then, a man from one of the front rows got up and reached for his bag. Marina immediately realized that this was the man Daniel had mistaken for his father. The man did look incredibly like Benjamin, but his face was a little rounder and his hair was shorter. He reached for his hat and Marina saw the mole on his chin. This can't be happening, she thought. No, this is a dream, some stupid coincidence. I don't want to believe this. This is ridiculous. Marina was shaking. It was hard for her to hide her emotions, but she did it for her son. The man, meanwhile, put his big hat back on, took the blonde girl's hand, and also went into the aisle. The hat again hid his face from Marina's sight. The people started leaving, and a few minutes later, Marina told Daniel to get ready. Marina waited even longer than usual so that she wouldn't run into the man. After getting off the plane, she couldn't walk past an airline employee who was standing at a desk. Marina knew the girl was there for a different flight, but she needed to let out some of her emotions and work through the situation. Excuse me, could you tell me if a certain person was on this flight? Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I'm waiting for a different flight to leave. But you could look up the information on the computer, right? It's the same airline. In theory, yes, but I would be breaking privacy laws. Miss, please, you have to understand, Marina said, bending close to the airline employee and whispering so Daniel wouldn't hear. My husband, who went missing several years ago, was on this flight. The girl looked at Marina, then at Daniel. The boy's innocent eyes must have been enough to break her resolve, and she decided to break the rules. The girl typed something on her computer screen. What's his name? She asked. Benjamin Smith. There's no one with that name on this flight. I'm so sorry. But I have to ask you to leave and not to tell anyone what I just did. Oh, okay, Marina said, confused. Thank you. She took Daniel's hand and slowly walked towards the baggage claim area. Marina was staring at the black conveyor belt with luggage on it. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed the man in the hat again. He already had his luggage and was walking towards the exit with his companion. It's so good that it wasn't him, Marina thought. I don't know what I would have done. What a strange coincidence. But the mole on his chin. No, I have to forget about all of this as soon as possible and focus on the holiday. After getting their suitcase, the mother and son left the airport and took a taxi to the hotel. Marina loved the room. There was a wonderful view of the sea from the window. She went out onto the balcony, took a deep breath, and mentally let go of everything that had happened that day. My new life is starting. I have many days of sun and sea ahead of me, and no random meetings will get in my way anymore, she thought. She went back into the room and lay down on the big bed. The first 3 days of the holiday were wonderful for Marina and her son. The weather was perfect, and there were always empty deck chairs on the beach. The only downside was that at night they could sometimes hear people arguing from the next room, but it didn't stop Marina or her son from falling asleep. In the evenings, Marina loved standing on the balcony and looking at the sea. It was like her daily meditation. She would calm down while watching the sunset on the water in the distance. On the 4th evening, Marina went out onto the balcony as usual. It was cloudy, so she wasn't going to get to enjoy the sunset. She was about to go inside when she heard people from the room on the floor below come out onto their balcony. They were arguing loudly, and Marina knew it was the same couple she heard at night. Darcy, do you care about anything in this life besides money? The man asked loudly. Of course. But for me to care about something, I need to be taken care of first, the girl yelled back. Marina decided to stay and listen. Not that she liked to eavesdrop, but this time she was interested to see how brazen this young woman could be. Besides, the man's voice sounded familiar. Don't I take care of you? The man continued. Are you kidding me? You brought me to this cheap place in Cornwall. I need the Maldives. I need Bali. Do you understand? But Darcy, this isn't a cheap place. This is a 4-star hotel. The only reason your last sugar daddies took you to the Maldives is because they only wanted your body. What about you? Do you want something else? Of course. I'm trying to teach you something, to explain, to make you a little smarter. You're such a bore. You're a young guy, but you act like a stuffy old man. I'm an old man. Okay, fine. The man's voice got a little quieter. But I'll let you in on a secret. You're not getting any younger either. And with time, the thing that makes rich men chase you will disappear. And what will be left? You'll be a 40-year-old woman with the mind of a 12-year-old girl. Marina froze. When the man spoke quieter, she realized it was her husband, Benjamin. No, it was him. She hadn't recognized him at first because she had almost never seen her husband yelling. All of their disagreements had been either quiet or in silence. Sometimes, silence can be much more effective than yelling, and in Marina and Benjamin's marriage, both of them understood that. But when the man on the floor below said, "And what will be left?" Marina no longer had any doubts. That was Benjamin's favorite phrase. He used it in every argument and in every difficult conversation, as if asking the person he was talking to, "So you're not going to agree with me? And what then? What will be left?" But his companion didn't seem to be affected by it at all. She laughed loudly. "Are you listening to yourself? What are you even saying? I'll look better at 40 than all of your exes and future girlfriends combined," she said through her laughter and went back inside, slamming the door. The supposed Benjamin stood there for a bit longer, opened the door, and then went inside. Marina was in shock. She wanted to hear his voice again to be sure. "Daniel, I'm going out for a bit. I'll be back soon," Marina said to her son. She went out onto the balcony, closed the door, and went to the main door. She ran into the corridor and called for the lift, but it was taking a very long time to arrive. So Marina ran to the stairs, went down one floor, and found the room that was directly under theirs. Forgetting all manners, Marina pressed her ear to the door. To what extremes will a woman's curiosity take her? The couple was still fighting. "Aren't you afraid that I'll just leave you right now?" "Where will you go, Darcy? There are plenty of rich men in Cornwall. You'll definitely find someone richer than you are." "You're going to regret saying that. Anyway, I don't care anymore. Go wherever you want. I don't care about you or your men. You're such a pathetic old scrounger. You'll come crawling back, begging me on your knees to take you back. You can think whatever you want. No one's going to crawl after you. Look at you, thinking you're a princess." "Oh, no one is. Then goodbye," the girl said, and Marina barely had time to press herself against the wall as the girl ran to the lift. She ran out of the room and didn't notice Marina. "Oh my God, what am I doing? I'm standing against a wall, hiding from a couple I was eavesdropping on. How embarrassing," Marina thought. But she knew that what she was doing was justified. It was too many coincidences. First the plane, then the mole, and now his voice. Either Marina had gone mad, or her dead husband was really on the other side of that wall. But it wasn't just her. Daniel had recognized him too. And you can't fool kids. Sure, some kids make up imaginary friends, but Daniel wasn't one of them. If he said he saw something, he really saw it. Marina decided to go to the window at the end of the corridor. She needed to catch her breath after all that. But she didn't get to rest for long. The door to the room opened and a man came out. Marina barely had time to turn her face to the window to avoid revealing herself too early. In the reflection, she saw the man close the door with his keycard and walk to the lift. When he got into the lift, Marina decided to follow him. She ran to the stairs and quickly went down, wanting to catch up to the lift. She managed to. They arrived at the ground floor at about the same time. Marina looked at him. If you took away a few extra pounds and some grey hairs, he would be the spitting image of Benjamin. The man was wearing a t-shirt and shorts, so it wasn't hard for Marina to recognize her dead husband by his appearance. She followed him from a distance of 10 to 15 meters, not understanding what she was doing. But something was compelling her to keep going. The man went to the bar, got a cocktail, and sat down at the counter. The detective game was becoming more and more exciting for Marina. She pulled up the collar of her jumper, ruffled her hair, and put on the sunglasses she had on her chest. Marina also went to the bar and, in a voice deeper than her own, ordered a mojito. She drank it for about 5 minutes while the man who looked like Benjamin drank a few shots of tequila and some cocktails. 10 minutes later, the alcohol seemed to have started working. "Tell me," he said. Marina jumped. She realized he was talking to her. There was no one else at the counter. "Why are you people so—" The man fell silent, trying to find the right word. "So what?" Marina asked in a low voice. "So complicated." Benjamin chose the least offensive word. "Maybe that's just how it seems to you. It's much simpler than you think." What a display of female solidarity. "You don't know anything about my situation, but you're telling me that's how it seems to me." "I can guess," Marina said, staring at her empty glass. She was afraid to turn and face him. "And what did you guess?" "You obviously had an argument with your girlfriend." Maybe she even ran away from you, insulted you. And now you're looking for support, for someone to tell you that you're right and that she's a spoiled brat who doesn't understand anything about life. Marina, without shame, used what she had overheard. You're very perceptive. I'm actually a little surprised. Female intuition really does exist. But I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not going to tell you how great you are and how terrible girls are. Maybe your girlfriend really is a brat, but you're not much smarter. Although you are quite rude. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. Marina didn't even notice that she had become rude. No, please, explain what you mean. Marina sighed and realized she had to tell him what she really thought of men like Benjamin. No one forces you men to choose young and stupid girls. You leave the smart and mature ones. You cheat, and then you complain that they only want you for your money. You're reading me like an open book. But you know, there are also hormones that make us choose young women. That sounds like a pathetic excuse. The ability to fight and control your animal instincts is what made a man out of an ape. You're a man, aren't you? So why are you telling me stories about hormones? Anyway, I'm probably saying too much. No, I asked you myself, Benjamin said, ordering another shot and downing it in one gulp. Oh, I'm getting drunk. I'm sorry. One more question. Since you're so smart and you know everything, tell me what I should do now. I have no idea. Learn to control your hormones. But I think your young companion will be back tomorrow or the day after. As for what you do with her after that, that's your choice. I'm not a psychologist. Maybe you should tell her to get lost. Maybe not, Marina said, not understanding the point of this conversation. Some kind of attraction to Benjamin wouldn't let her just turn around and leave and forced her to continue the conversation, even though it risked her being exposed. Listen, have we met before? The man asked right when Marina was thinking about being exposed. I don't think so. This is my first time here. Your voice sounds very familiar to me. Maybe you're confusing me with someone else? Marina came to her senses and decided to leave quickly. Well, good luck on the romantic front. I have to go. Maybe we'll see each other again. Maybe. Marina left the bar and called the lift. She realized that she had only avoided being exposed because Benjamin was drunk. She no longer had any doubt that this man was Benjamin. Before this conversation, there was a chance that her dead husband had a brother who looked like him and had the same mole, but now she knew it wasn't a brother. The intonation, the gaze, the voice, the mannerisms. Besides, she remembered how Benjamin looked when he was drunk. He never made a scene. He just became a little more talkative. He hadn't changed his behavior with women in 3 years either. First one, then another. Today, he had an argument with his companion and immediately he was having a nice chat with Marina. He was still the same person. Now Marina had to decide what to do. Should she reveal herself? Why? What would be left, as Benjamin would say, just to look him in the eye? She had seen enough of his expressions during their years together. But on the other hand, she was just curious. Why did he do this to her? Could the reason really be that he wanted to leave and start a new family this way? But then he could have just left her. He didn't have to make her suffer and cry for 3 years. What a scoundrel he is, Marina thought as she went back to her room. She hadn't even noticed how her reaction to the thoughts of Benjamin had changed. In the plane, she was shaking and barely holding back her hysteria. Now, she was completely calm and confident. She didn't want to reveal herself to Benjamin at any cost. The only thing that was tormenting her was her curiosity. Did anyone else from Benjamin's past know he was alive? What was his name now? The airline employee in the airport hadn't found his name on the passenger list. After these thoughts, Marina had 2 choices. The first was to just be happy that he was alive and not dead, live her life calmly, take more holidays, and spoil herself. In a few years, she would tell her son that his father had simply left them and that no one knew where he was. It was unclear which would be worse for a child's mind, sadness from knowing his father had died or resentment from knowing his father had betrayed them. Marina thought the second option was better. She could find another man who would be a father to Daniel. The second option was to meet Benjamin without hiding who she was. That would mean a difficult conversation, explanations, and apologies. She might have to deal with one of his new girlfriends. But the biggest danger with this option was Marina's feelings. They could play a cruel trick on her and make her fall in love with him again. But Marina rejected that option. It was one thing to grieve for a tragically dead husband, while remembering the happy moments of their life together. It was another thing to see a liar, a cheater, and a jerk right in front of her. How could she love a person like that? Marina couldn't decide which option to choose. She looked at the sleeping Daniel, tucked him in better, and sighed. The next day, Marina and her son were getting ready to go to the beach. The weather had gotten better, so they had to hurry to get some empty deck chairs. The beach was only for hotel guests, so it wasn't as crowded as some British beaches. But on a good day, all the deck chairs could be taken. Marina stood in front of the mirror deciding what to wear. She decided to play it safe and take her other sunglasses, which were much wider and covered almost half of her face. In addition to the sunglasses, she put on a big hat. She was protecting herself not only from the sun. If Benjamin was living right below them, the chance of a random meeting was too high. Marina still hadn't decided if she should approach her ex-husband or not, so she was keeping her disguise for now, just in case. After getting ready, she took Daniel's hand and went to the lift. The lift took a few minutes to arrive. All the hotel guests seemed to have decided to go to the beach that morning. Marina and her son went into the lift. The lift stopped on the floor below, the doors opened, and the bleached blonde girl, Benjamin's companion, got in. This time she wasn't on her phone and had a grumpy look on her face. "How long do I have to wait? People have so many kids and then they take up the lift," she said in a nasty voice. "Ma'am, what do you think you're doing? There are a lot of guests and only one lift. I waited for it just like you did," Marina said calmly. "I don't care how long you waited," the girl said, looking Marina up and down with an angry look. "You're wearing that old stuff and you're talking to me?" Marina wasn't annoyed by what Benjamin's companion was saying. She was above answering insults with insults. Marina just covered Daniel's ears, and they rode down to the ground floor in silence. The lobby was buzzing with activity. The grumpy girl was lost in the crowd, which Marina was happy about, since Benjamin's companion was probably heading to her ex-husband. After they got to the beach, Marina realized she was right twice. Just last night, she had told Benjamin that the girl would be back, and it turned out even faster than Marina had thought. His companion was indeed heading to Benjamin on the beach, whose job was apparently to find empty deck chairs. As luck would have it, 2 empty deck chairs were right next to the ones Benjamin had found. They were a few rows away, and if you wanted to, you could see them and even hear their conversations. There was nothing Marina could do. She didn't want to ruin her and her son's holiday, so she calmly walked to the empty deck chairs. Besides, with her disguise, she had nothing to fear. She slowly set up her spot, put some sunscreen on Daniel, and lay down on the deck chair. She didn't have to wait long for something interesting to happen. The girl started yelling at Benjamin almost immediately. "Couldn't you find seats closer to the sea?" she said, annoyed. "These were the closest ones. To be closer to the sea, you have to get up earlier, not sleep in until 11. Oh, who's talking? Who was drinking until 2 a.m. last night? I was awake waiting for you, so I couldn't get up earlier? Let me remind you, my dear, that you left me yesterday. How was I supposed to know you'd be back in 2 hours? Let this be a lesson for you, so you'll be afraid of losing me." Benjamin didn't answer, but the girl didn't stop. "I'm doing you a favor by forgetting all your insults and lies." "When did I insult you?" "This holiday is an insult. This awful hotel. Do you know how long I waited for that bloody lift today? I had to ride with some single mom who was left by her husband." After hearing that, Marina decided to stop listening to the couple's argument. She took off her hat and put her head down, but she could still hear their voices. "When will you stop being so mean?" Benjamin asked quietly. "When will you stop being like this? Oh, look at you. What do you even look like?" Marina carefully lifted her head and looked at Benjamin. She was a little scared by what she saw. Benjamin was pale, his eyes were all over the place, and his hands looked like they weren't obeying him. He had probably spent a long time in the bar last night. "Darcy, I need to lie down," Benjamin said, and passed out on the deck chair. "Ben!" the girl screamed. "What's wrong with you? Someone help him!" The girl's annoyance instantly turned into fear. It was clear from her face that she was truly scared for her man. It was unclear why she was scared. Was she afraid of losing the man she loved, or was she afraid of losing the wallet that was taking care of her? But her fear was useless for Benjamin. Darcy just screamed and didn't do anything to help. So Marina jumped up from her deck chair and ran to Benjamin. She checked his breathing and his pulse. He was breathing, but his pulse was weak. "Get an umbrella to cover him from the sun," Marina ordered. "What? What umbrella?" Why? The girl said, showing off her quick thinking skills in an emergency. Just go to the hotel and get a doctor quickly. The girl ran to the hotel. Marina realized she would have to give him first aid herself. The other people on the beach were just watching what was happening out of curiosity. Marina bent Benjamin's leg at the knee, turned him on his side, and tilted his head back to open his airways. Then she ran to the deck chairs by the sea, grabbed a beach umbrella, and put it next to Benjamin. 30 seconds later, the man started to come to. He slowly opened his eyes and saw Marina. She wasn't wearing her sunglasses or her hat. Marina, is that you? Benjamin asked, his words slurred. It's me, Marina replied, realizing she had completely forgotten about her disguise. At that moment, Darcy came back from the hotel with a doctor. The doctor walked over to Benjamin, and Marina went back to her deck chair. She saw the doctor give her ex-husband a shot and check his pulse. He then turned to Darcy. He's fine. It's just a regular fainting spell, probably from the heat. He needs to be taken to his cool room to rest. How am I supposed to take him? The girl asked, surprised. I'll walk on my own, Benjamin whispered, got up from the deck chair, and looked around. He probably wanted to find Marina, but she had put her hat and sunglasses back on in time, and she was out of his sight. He then walked back to the hotel with his girlfriend. Marina was still lying on the beach. The situation had become even more complicated. Benjamin knew she had seen him, but they hadn't gotten a chance to talk. He would either mistake what happened for a hallucination, or he would look for her. Marina no longer had any desire to see Benjamin again. She looked at Daniel, who was on his phone, and thought about his reaction to seeing his father. Benjamin would almost certainly want to see his son, and maybe even be a part of his life again. What had happened today showed him who he was better off with: experienced and sensible women or silly and self-centered girls. Marina didn't want Benjamin back in her life. She was actually very afraid of it, especially if he started to repent and apologize to her. Marina was a kind-hearted woman and could forgive a lot, but forgiving betrayal was too much for her. Marina packed their things and went with her son to eat at the hotel cafe. Every man she saw there looked like Benjamin. She was too anxious to eat normally. She took Daniel's hand and led him back to their room. She hadn't even managed to lie down on the bed when the phone rang. The phone was somewhere in her beach bag, and she couldn't find it. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. "Just a minute," Marina yelled and continued looking for her phone. A few seconds later, the phone stopped ringing and the knocking started again. "What is it? I said to wait," Marina said, annoyed, and went to the door. She opened it, and Benjamin was standing in the corridor. Marina immediately closed the door again. "Marina, wait!" Benjamin's voice came from the corridor. Marina waited a few seconds, thought about it, and opened the door again. "How did you find me?" "At the reception. I asked what room Marina Smith was in." "I'm not your wife," Marina said sternly. "I understand what you're feeling right now, but please, let's talk. I'm begging you, give me a chance to explain." "Not now. Daniel will hear." "Then let's meet in the hotel bar tonight at 10 p.m., okay?" Marina's curiosity won. "Please come," Benjamin said. Marina closed the door. Now she had to mentally prepare for the conversation with her ex-husband, but she didn't know how. For the rest of the time, she was restless. What story would Benjamin tell her? Would she be able to believe a single word he said? Marina had no answers to these questions. The only thing she told herself was to be tough, not to be sentimental, and to be critical of everything she would hear. With those thoughts, she put Daniel to bed and headed to the bar. She found an empty table in the back of the bar where the music wasn't as loud, and started waiting. 10 minutes later, Benjamin appeared at the entrance. Marina didn't signal to him to let him find her faster. He carefully looked around the bar and came to the furthest decade table. "Hello, Marina," Benjamin said, his voice full of guilt. "We've already seen each other," Marina said bluntly. "Have you ordered anything yet?" "No." "Did you come here to get a drink? Will it make the conversation easier?" "I'll go now." Benjamin went to the bar, ordered 2 cocktails, and brought them to the table. "Did the doctor say you could drink? I think you should lay off the booze after a fainting spell. They're non-alcoholic. And by the way, thank you for helping me on the beach today. If it wasn't for you, I don't know if she would have even called a doctor. You're welcome. Why don't you take better care of yourself?" You know that drinking and then being out in the heat? I've kind of stopped paying attention to my health lately. I guess I need to be more careful. I'm not 18 anymore. No, you're not. Why would you? You've been dead for a while. A dead man doesn't need to take care of his health. Marina, Benjamin sighed heavily. I'm going to start talking, and please don't interrupt me. Just listen. I'll try. Okay. 3 years ago, I started getting threats. Our company crossed paths with a very serious organization. It all started when I took out a loan for a new project, a neobank. Of course, a bank wouldn't give us a loan with such conditions, so I turned to this shady organization. We signed a contract, and they transferred a huge amount of money to our account, but the contractor we chose never did the work and disappeared. Their representative said he was seen in Cyprus, but that's not the point. I went to the organization and explained the situation, but of course no one would listen. They gave me a month to pay back the loan. We went to the police, but they said they couldn't help us because both the organization and the contractor were working illegally. From then on, they started calling and emailing me. I was afraid they would start coming to our house. They demanded the money back, but how was I supposed to find such a huge amount in a month? The threats kept coming more and more often, and I decided to go away to Scotland. After 2 weeks, I was about to go back when the security guard at the holiday resort told me that a group of young men had been asking about me. I knew they had found me. There was nowhere to run. They would have caught me at the airport, at the train station. I was even in a resort, and they still found me. I was confused. It felt like my life was over. I remember running into a forest and somehow getting a signal on my phone. I called Julian Allister, our CEO. I remember that conversation well. First, he interrupted me and told me that you had called and asked about me. I'm so sorry, but I couldn't tell you. Anyway, we came up with a plan to fake my death there, at Loch Ness. We often rode snowmobiles there, so we decided to use that. I told the employees I was with to spread the news of my death and to deal with the rescue teams. Julian Allister was supposed to tell the whole firm and come to you. How could you do that? Marina whispered. I was saving my life. And not just mine. They could have gone after you and Daniel. He helped you, didn't he? In a way. But you think that money, a will, could make my suffering any easier? I didn't live for 3 years. This is my first holiday in all this time. I'm sorry, but I had no choice. You could have gone with us abroad and hid there. Why did you choose the cruelest way? Those people would have found us even abroad. Besides, I was in a situation where I couldn't get away in time. I was cornered. You could have told me about your problems right away, not waited until you were at a critical point. I didn't want to burden you. We had a small child, so you didn't need any extra worries. You remembered our child? How many times did you see him in the last year of your life? I'm so sorry. In these 3 years, I realized how much I miss my son. How do you always get away with it? You always come out looking like the victim. You were sorry, and you wanted to do what was best for me. I said I was sorry. I was a complete idiot. Well, I'm glad you admit that. But your repentance won't undo years of my suffering. I don't know why you decided to talk to me in the first place. First, I just wanted to explain myself. Second, I wanted to hear you forgive me. So you thought you'd tell me your sad story about how you were threatened and had no choice, and I would be moved and forgive your infidelities and betrayal? Benjamin didn't know what to say. He looked at his empty glass and was about to go get another one, but then he sat back down. What is it? Marina asked, thinking he was feeling unwell again. This is going to get loud. Please don't pay attention to anything and don't listen. Marina didn't understand the jumble of words her ex-husband was saying. But a moment later, Benjamin's current girlfriend, Darcy, walked up to their table. So, this is where you are, you scumbag. I knew you'd run off to the bar with some women, she said loudly and slapped Benjamin. Darcy, you have it all wrong. I understood everything about you a long time ago. You're not a man. You can't even take care of me and you're running off to other women. Darcy, stop it right now. No, let her continue. Marina joined in the conversation. You're such a witch and you're getting sassy with me? Darcy turned to Marina and tried to grab her hair, but Benjamin was quick and pulled his girlfriend back, making her sit down next to him. Let go of me! Let go right now! Calm down, Benjamin said loudly. It's not her fault. It is her fault for stealing other women's men. Darcy wasn't going to calm down. You're absolutely right, Marina continued to provoke the girl. That's exactly why I came to this bar. To steal your precious man. Such a loyal, faithful, and honest person is hard to find now. And you just let him go in an uneven fight with me. Marina, you... Benjamin tried to calm his ex-wife down. "Let go of me. I'll rip all her hair out," Darcy screamed. "Enough, Darcy. This is my ex-wife." The girl immediately calmed down. "Your wife? The one you left years ago?" she asked, surprised. "Yeah," Benjamin replied, a little embarrassed, trying to hide his eyes. "Left years ago," Marina said, interested in his wording. "I would say you vanished." "No, that's even better." Benjamin didn't react to that. Of course, he hadn't told his new girlfriend about all his adventures. "Wait," Darcy said, surprised. "What about the kid I saw her with? Is he yours?" "Yes, he's mine. But you told me you didn't have any kids." "I lied," he said. Darcy was silent for a while. She needed to process what she had just heard. "You don't need to worry," Marina said to her in a calm tone. "He doesn't have much to do with that child. Just biologically. My son has almost forgotten his father, so you can just pretend he didn't lie." "Marina, I was trying to justify myself," Benjamin said. "I should have known right away what a scoundrel you are." Darcy cut Benjamin off. "You left your wife, your son, and you'll leave me too. I can't look at you anymore. Goodbye." Darcy jumped up and ran out of the bar. Benjamin ran after her. Marina was left alone with her half-empty cocktail. Could she have imagined a week ago that this first holiday in a long time would turn out this way? After a holiday like this, as they say, you need another one. She would have to process all these events for a long time. But deep down, she was happy. First, that Benjamin was alive. Yes, he was a scoundrel, a cheater, a liar, but he was alive. Second, Marina knew that the period of mourning in her life was over. Now there would be new challenges, like talking to Daniel about his father. But these were just everyday problems, not a tragedy. At the very least, Marina's life would become much more interesting than it had been. That's why she didn't pay attention to the screaming, the insults, or the attempts to grab her hair from that angry girl. She understood that a new stage of her life had begun, and that the past would never return, not even in her memories. Marina got up and slowly walked out of the bar. She wanted to take a walk and get some fresh air. No one was in the hotel courtyard. Everyone was either in their rooms or in the bars and restaurants. Marina took a deep breath of the warm coastal air and felt free. The chains of mourning were broken. She walked to a small square and saw Benjamin sitting on a bench. "From the look on your face, I'm guessing you didn't catch up to her," Marina said, and sat down next to her ex-husband. "I did, but I think she left me for good this time. She's getting her things from the room right now." "Why do you even need that whole circus? You were arguing all night. I could hear every detail of your relationship." "I don't know. Something was holding me back. She's young and I'm not. I wanted young energy and fun." "You had your fun," Benjamin said, waving his hand. "Look, I don't want to scold you anymore, especially since you know everything about yourself. But tell me, don't you feel sorry for yourself?" "What do you mean?" "Look, you were always chasing something, running after money. You got threats to your life because of that, which made you fake your own death. You tried to chase happiness in a new life and got that naive, loud girl. You're not that old, and you're already passing out from hangovers. What was all of this for? Where did it all get you?" You know, in the last few years, I've come close to asking myself that question, but I always ran away from it with stupid excuses. Money? Well, you can never have too much of it. It gives you freedom and security. In my case, it was the complete opposite. A relationship? It gives you new energy, fresh blood. You feel more alive and joyful, and I was wrong about that too. I don't know. I'm completely lost. But you're the one who got yourself into this mess. You lost yourself. But you're feeling sorry for yourself now in the wrong way. What do you mean, wrong way? There are different ways to feel sorry for yourself. You're feeling sorry for yourself in a destructive way, and there's no use in that. In fact, it'll only bury you deeper. You're not feeling sorry for yourself, you're just putting yourself down. A productive way to feel sorry for yourself should sound like this. Yes, my mistakes led me to a difficult situation, but I'm strong enough to reconsider my principles and try to rebuild my life. Something like that. Marina didn't even notice that her anger towards Benjamin had disappeared. She saw a weak, insecure, and completely harmless person. She even wanted to help him. For a second, Marina was even scared that she was feeling this way because her feelings for him were coming back. That's what she had been afraid of when she saw her ex-husband for the first time. But no, Compassion and love were two completely different things, even though sometimes it's hard to tell them apart. And what Marina felt was compassion. Thank you, Marina. For what? At some point during our conversation in the bar, I thought you were just going to slap me, turn round, and run away. Thank you for not doing that. I actually had that thought, Marina said with a smile. But curiosity won. Listen, how are you not afraid to come back to London? You have so many friends and acquaintances there. Daniel and I could have seen you. I didn't live in the city itself, but in a small village outside it. I didn't go into the city centre, and I mostly worked remotely. When I did have to go into town, I took the car, and I completely changed my look and my name. I thought that would be enough, and it was, until I ran into you. My disguise worked the first time we met too. Marina remembered seeing Benjamin at the airport for the first time, but the big hat had kept her from recognizing him. If it wasn't for Daniel, we probably wouldn't be sitting here now. He recognized me. I didn't expect that. I was hoping he had forgotten everything a long time ago. Benjamin sighed heavily. Marina, I want to see him. Why? I know I can never be a full-fledged father to him, but I really want to see him. You said yourself that I can rebuild my life. Please give me this chance. Marina didn't know what to say. Maybe now, when Daniel was still young and hadn't hit his teenage years, was the perfect time to bring his father back into his life. But Marina was afraid to take such a big step. She was used to raising Daniel on her own. I don't know. This meeting could be very difficult for him. I understand. I'll try to be as respectful as possible. Okay, let's do this. I'll prepare him in the morning and tell him about you. Then we'll meet and talk a little. After the meeting, I'll talk to him alone again. And only if he wants to see you again will we think about what to do next. Of course. Then tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the hotel cafe? Just remember, for Daniel, you're an explorer who has been exploring new lands. That's a clever story. Okay, I understand. Marina said goodbye and went to her room. She tossed and turned and couldn't sleep until the morning. It was hard for her to imagine how the meeting would go. How would Daniel react? How would Benjamin act? There were too many factors she couldn't predict. What if Daniel didn't want to see his father again? With these thoughts, Marina lay in bed until her alarm clock went off. She had set it for 10 a.m. so she would have enough time to get ready and explain everything to Daniel. Mummy, are we going somewhere today? Her son asked, watching her put on makeup. Yes, Daniel. Do you remember that passenger on the plane you said was your dad? Yes. Well, you were right. It really was your dad. Can you believe it? He's back from his trip and is here in Cornwall. I told you, the boy cheered. And we're going to see him today, aren't we? Yes, he'll be so happy to see you. And I'll be happy to see him. Marina was happy with her son's reaction. He was interested in his father, which meant the meeting wouldn't be as hard on him as it could have been. Where was he for so long? The boy asked. He'll tell you everything himself. When it was almost 11 a.m., Marina and her son left the room. She was getting more and more nervous. Maybe it's not too late to cancel the meeting. Let everything stay the way it was. But there was no turning back. Marina had already told Daniel, and a sudden cancellation would be a psychological trauma for him, the one thing she had been so worried about. Marina and her son arrived at the cafe, which was on the ground floor of the hotel. Benjamin was already sitting inside. When he saw his ex-wife and son, he got up and walked towards them. "Daddy!" Daniel said loudly, and ran towards Benjamin. "Hello, my boy," Benjamin said, hugging his son. Marina greeted her ex-husband, and they all sat down at a table. "So, tell me how you've been," Benjamin said to his son. "We've been great. It's so cool here. This is the first time Mummy and I have been on such a great trip." "That's great, and I was always thinking about you," the boy continued. Marina looked at him in surprise. "Really? I was always thinking about you too. But I saw that Mummy wasn't very happy when I started asking about you, so I tried not to talk about you around her. I figured it was because she was worried about you." "Mummy, is that true?" Daniel asked. "I thought you didn't want to talk about Daddy." "No, I was just worried about him." Benjamin was holding back tears. "So, where were you all this time?" Daniel asked. "I was far away and I couldn't come to you. It's just my job. I have to travel to different cities, villages, forests, and lakes and explore dangerous places. That kind of job requires constant travel, and we travelers don't get to see our families very often." Then why don't you quit that job so we can see you more often? Someone has to do it. Then let the people who don't have anyone waiting for them do it. Benjamin realized he couldn't hold back his emotions anymore. He pretended to get an urgent phone call and ran to the loo. Sometimes men have to cry in situations like this too. See, Daniel, your dad has a very stressful job, Marina said, now alone with her son. They keep calling him and bothering him, even on holiday. Then why does he have a job like that? The boy asked, annoyed. Everyone has a calling. A few minutes later, Benjamin came back. I'm so sorry, I had to take a call. We were just talking about your stressful and long job that doesn't let you see your son, Marina said, leading the conversation to the most important topic, Benjamin's future role in Daniel's life. About my job, Benjamin stammered a little. You know, Daniel, I quit that job. I just did it on the phone. Really? Hooray! Now we can see each other more often, the boy asked happily. Yes, we'll definitely see each other more often, Benjamin said to his son, looking at Marina. If Mummy doesn't mind, of course. Mummy, would you mind? Daniel asked, surprised. Of course not. I would never be against it. But how often you see each other will depend on your dad, in large part. I promise we'll see each other as often as possible, Benjamin said firmly to his son. Then why can't you just live with us like you used to? Benjamin didn't know how to answer. He looked at his ex-wife, confused. Marina tried to get them out of the awkward situation, because your dad has to start a new life and find a new job, and he won't have time to be with us all the time. But when he finds one, he can, right? Daniel put Marina and Benjamin in an even more awkward position. Who knows what will happen then? We'll see, Marina said, avoiding the question. Benjamin, Marina, and Daniel sat at the table and talked for a long time. They talked about holidays, the sea, and traveling. They talked about their lives and made plans for the future. They didn't just end their day at the cafe. They all went to the beach. Benjamin even started teaching his son how to swim. It was as if they understood each other without saying a word. Daniel had never learned anything with so much interest, not even with his mother. Marina watched all of this and remembered when she and Benjamin had just started their relationship and when Daniel had been born. It was a pleasant nostalgia, but Marina quickly pulled herself together again. She couldn't just forget Benjamin's behavior, his betrayals and his lies. Even though he and their son were getting along so well, she had to keep her distance so she wouldn't make the same mistakes again. Even though Benjamin had changed a lot since then. As evening came, the three of them went to walk around town. From the outside, Marina, Benjamin, and Daniel looked like a real happy family. It got dark, and they went back to the hotel. After saying goodbye by the lift, Marina and Daniel went into their room. So, did you have a good time with Daddy? Marina asked. Very much. I want to spend every day like this with him. That won't be possible every day. We're flying back tomorrow. Tomorrow? Already? Marina had been so busy with all the adventures with Benjamin that she had forgotten that their holiday was almost over. That's a shame. Are we flying back with Daddy? No, he's flying back later. We'll see him next time in our city. I have to wait again? Don't worry, this time you'll have to wait much less, Marina said hopefully. Mummy, why can't you just live together like you used to? I've already explained it to you. That's life. Sometimes you have to choose things you don't really like. That's the path Daddy had to choose. But everything will still change for us. We'll take more trips like this and see Daddy more often. You'll like it. Okay, the boy said, yawning, and went to his bed. Marina also went to bed, but a few minutes later, her phone rang. She quietly went out onto the balcony and closed the door tightly so she wouldn't wake Daniel up. Hello, Marina? Benjamin's voice came from the other end. Yes, you still have my number, I see. I do. How's Daniel? I talked to him. He's happy. That's great. So, should we go for a walk again tomorrow? No, we're flying back tomorrow. I almost forgot about it myself. It's a good thing my phone alarm went off. Oh, so soon? I'm not flying for another 3 days, and I won't have a chance to see you at all tomorrow morning. We could meet for a little bit, just the two of us. Daniel said you would see each other after we fly back. Why did you have to rush things? He's already had so many impressions today. I think it's better to get to know each other slowly. I guess you're right. Where should we meet? In the square, in the hotel courtyard? Okay, good night then. See you tomorrow. You hold grudges for a long time. What's there to hold a grudge about? Your weakness? Weakness isn't a crime, so you can live peacefully. I'm not mad at you. You're a very wise woman. I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. I just kept thinking about you and Daniel. Do you remember when he asked why we couldn't just live together again? I remember. He asked me the same question again last night. So maybe he's right. If you've forgiven me, if we got along so well with Daniel, why don't we start over? What do you think about that idea? Would you be willing? No, Marina said, after a short pause. It was so hard for her to say that word. The possibility of repeating their past family happiness was so tempting. Marina's feelings for Benjamin had returned, but she held herself back. She remembered the warning she had given herself on the beach. Don't make the same mistakes again. A quick yes would have been a mistake. Everything had happened too quickly. She had only known the new Benjamin for a few days. That wasn't enough time to start a serious relationship and live together. The forgiveness she had given Benjamin didn't mean they could start a relationship. Forgiveness was one thing. Not letting a new heartache happen was another. Benjamin didn't argue with Marina's answer. He just shook his head and said, I understand your answer. If I were you, I wouldn't forgive myself at all. But thank you for what you've given me. Just please don't let my answer affect the fact that my son will have a father again. Don't worry about that. I'll come to you as soon as I fly back. Just please let me know when you've landed and stay in touch. Okay? You don't get lost this time either. I won't. Marina had to go back to her room and get ready for the airport. Both she and Benjamin clearly wanted to hug each other goodbye, but they didn't. By saying no, Marina might have made the most difficult choice of her life. She had always been a yes person, ever since she was a child. But here she had overcome all her feelings. By doing that, Marina proved to herself that she was a strong woman, independent of her feelings. When she turned to walk away, she heard Benjamin call out to her, Wait. Yes? Please tell me, is your no forever, or do I still have a chance? We'll see, Marina said and walked quickly back to the hotel. Once she was in the lift, tears came to her eyes. No, they weren't tears from a sad goodbye to Benjamin. They would see each other again in a few days. They were tears of joy. Joy from new feelings, from a new chapter in her life. During this holiday, Marina had learned to look at life differently, to control her emotions and feelings, to find her son a father, but at the same time, not to rush into a thoughtless and naive relationship with Benjamin. Only a wise woman can maintain a balance like that. And that's exactly what Marina had become on those warm summer days. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, and give this video a like. Thank you for watching.